Senator Hawley. Senator Rosen, you're recognized for your questions.
Thank you, Chairman Peters, Ranking Member Portman. Thank you for witnesses for being here today. Transparency, accountability, I guess those are the words of the day, because we know that social media companies, of course, what do? I'm a former computer programmer. Data is power. How you analyze the data tells a story if you're smart enough to listen to it. And you collect the demographic behavioral data from consumers in order to enhance the predictive engagement algorithms to target the consumers with ad recommendations based on other content, perceived interest, or even vulnerabilities. This is really great when you're shopping for a new outfit or some new furniture. Maybe not so great when you're on an extremist or violent website or harmful or illegal content. And so when it comes to that harmful or illegal content, there has to be greater transparency into the platform promotion mechanisms, how the content ultimately spreads from platform to platform, so that I believe consumers, and I'll say not just the individual, we have small businesses, hospitals, schools, everyone are on these platforms in some form or fashion. So when we say consumer, we can go from the individual right up to our full national security, that we understand better the algorithms that amplify the content and how these things reach their feed. And so some social media platforms, for example, they have standards in place for removing content that promotes Holocaust denial or distortion. They're often inconsistent with implementing the policies, but the content flourishes. So I'm going to kind of cut right to the chase. And so, Mr. Redder and then Mr. Boland, is there a difference now in how predictive user engagement algorithms behave for harmful, illegal, or extremist content versus other content? And how might we modify or regulate an otherwise agnostic algorithm? It's math. It's agnostic, to your point, an agnostic algorithm to identify illegal, certainly illegal or extremist content. How do we take the agnostic out of the math? Mr. Redder.
So today the algorithms are doing exactly what they're incented to do, which is maximize attention on the platform. If you changed what those companies were accountable for, these companies are very smart. They have a lot of engineers and a lot of money and a lot of computational power. They would change what the algorithms do. So for example, if certain types of content if companies were penalized for sharing certain types of content, these algorithms would no longer promote that content because it would be not optimal for them to do so. The extra benefit they get from the attention and the usage would be outweighed by whatever the penalty was. So this is all possible. I think the two takeaways are, one, without transparency, we're not going to know what it's doing today. And two, they will behave optimally in the face of any incentive structure they have. So today it's just maximizing attention, and they're doing exactly what you would expect. But you could change that.
Thank you.
I think it's important to note that not only do we not know what's happening on the platforms don't know what's generally happening on their platforms. The turning point for me to go from having concerns to being publicly vocal about my concerns was when Facebook said nothing on January 6th happened on our platform. And then it turns out after the fact that we find out that there's a lot of stop the steal on the platform, and there were internal concerns around it. In order to change these algorithms, part of it is understanding what is happening, and then as a society having the conversations about what do we think the right distribution is. Facebook has proven that with things like QAnon, after the fact,
right,
after the fire was lit and burned through, they could then adjust it and actually manage the distribution of that type of content. So it is possible when we know what we're managing towards. The problem is that it's all after the fact. It's all after the damage has been done that you then go back and you say, okay, there's been this set of articles or conversations, and finally we go back to address them, rather than saying we have a whole community of researchers and people who could quickly spot things, raise the issues, and then adjust them. It's doable. It's an incredibly hard problem. Like, I'm very sympathetic to the fact that human speech is very complicated and very nuanced.
But the platforms have an unwillingness. They actually want to have this lack of understanding, so they have some deniability on the back end, if that's what you're saying is true. We don't know it's happening. Oh my gosh, it happened after the fact. So their lack of wanting to do the analysis ahead of time and understand their own platform they're setting themselves up for deniability, in my estimation. But we're going to move on to cybersecurity because I have a few minutes left. We know the whistleblower complaint from Twitter's former head of security depicted they were unable to protect the 238 million users, government agencies, influential figures, heads of state from spam and security breaches. And the complaint alleged the company's servers were running out-of-date and vulnerable software and withheld dire facts about the breaches and lack of protection for user data. I'm really concerned about cybersecurity. Companies are laser-focused on growth, not laser-focused on protection, in my estimation. So individuals, again, small businesses, hospitals, schools, critical infrastructure, all of those things we're responsible for here are at potential risk. And so based on, both your experience working at Facebook and Twitter, is cybersecurity a high enough priority for the large social media platforms? And do the social media platform security teams, do they work alongside product development, application development to protect that cyber attacks? Do you have a hunt forward? Are you looking for these breaches? How are you working that? And how does this threaten our own security, even our national security?
So the teams, they do work alongside engineering, but it's not a primary driver the way product and growth and revenue is. You need to build something that drives usage and revenue and then make it secure enough. So in terms of your question, is it a high enough priority? The answer to that can only be known if you know the nature of the threat and if the bad actor is trying to break in or being successful.
So there's no hunt forward operations built into these things for people trying to breach the data?
Sorry, can you say that again?
There's no kind of hunt forward, there's no way that people are really actively looking for data breaches. You're finding it after the fact in many cases.
No, there are in some cases some penetration testing and people trying to simulate breaking into something to learn. That happens.
And can you speak to it, Mr. Boland?
Yeah, my sense from Meta's standpoint is that they're quite good and quite invested in protecting people's data, and from a cybersecurity standpoint, which goes to show you that where there is a will and a desire to make progress on issues, I believe they can. This is an area where my experience is they're quite strong.
Thank you. I see my time is up, so I'll yield back. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Rosen. Senator Hassan, you're recognized for your questions.